Welcome to Accelerating Education, a podcast for everyone involved in educating today's kids, especially those who are interested in optimizing educational outcomes. Here's our host, Richard Capone.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Accelerating Education. My name is Richard Capone, and I'll be your host. Today, we have with us here Dr. Jennifer Sears, Associate Professor in the Department of Elementary and Special Education at the University of North Georgia. Welcome, Dr. Sears.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to chat with you and to talk more.
Great, me too. It's been a long time in coming. We've known each other for a while and I've heard about all the work you're doing. So first, let me just get a little background. I think everyone would love to hear a little bit about yourself, because obviously you're a professor right now, but
Yes.
How did you start and get into special education?
So my journey to special education actually began, honestly, before I was born. My aunt was born in 1948, and when she was born with Down syndrome. And that was during a time where, people with Down syndrome were not in the general public. Most children who were born with Down syndrome were given a lifespan of 5 to 10 years, and families were told, just put your child in an institution, and that is what you should do. Well, my grandparents did not agree with that at all, and brought their daughter Candy home and proceeded to have 7 more children, who all were kind of mentors to Candy growing up. And my Aunt Candy lived until she was in her 60s. She held a job. My grandparents were very involved in the Special Olympics. And so from the time I was very young, disability and people with disabilities were a big part of my life. But then when it came time to go to college, I wasn't a special ed major. I was a music performance major. And so it was kind of a different path to becoming a special ed teacher. I decided later in my life to do that. And I went to Los Angeles and was part of the LA Teaching Fellows program. And that's where I had my very first job as a special ed teacher at Belvedere Middle School in East Los Angeles, teaching 8th graders with disabilities and I had nothing. I had one book and a group of kids, and that's what I had. So I had to really learn on the fly. And I think for me, that was a great way to learn. I went to Cal State Northridge, got my certification, and then moved back east, became an administrator. So I did some time in school administration, and then was given the opportunity to go to University of Central Florida and get my PhD, which very proud recipient of a Part D grant and got to go to school for free. And it was the best experience I could have ever imagined. And now I'm here in North Georgia working with young adults who want to be teachers in a really challenging time to want to be a teacher. And it is honestly, I cannot say enough about my students. I have the best job in the whole wide world.
That's an incredible story. So your family was one of the pioneers who probably helped fight and get IDEA passed, because obviously...
Say 100%. My grandparents were part of the original ARC in Connecticut, and they were instrumental in fighting for the rights of people with disabilities. So I feel like I'm carrying on my grandparents' legacy, doing what I do now.
That's great. I'm glad people can hear that, because I do think so many people, especially those outside the special education world, don't know the nuance of what pre-IDEA was. And this year, of course, in November, next month, is the birth date of IDEA,
Yes.
50 years. So it's sort of an exciting time. Well, thank you to you and your family. And it's amazing. I think, being raised with this exposure makes you a better person and a sensitive person, which we all need in this world, right? We need sensitivity.
Absolutely. And it really is disability has always been a part of my life. It never has been a part of there's never been a time in my life where I wasn't around people with disabilities. And I learned sign language at a very young age because some of my aunt's friends were deaf. So I learned sign language when I was really young. And it's just always been a part of who I am and what has made me the person I am today.
Well, I think on a positive level, I do think there's a shift, because I think about my own education, and I don't think I was exposed to that as much when I was young. And it was seen, when I went to school, it was students in special ed were more segregated, right? They didn't have
Right?
inclusion as much. And then I look at my own kids and their experience, and they fundamentally, there's a lot more sensitivity among the newer
Oh,
generation,
yeah,
which makes me very hopeful and positive about the future because
I agree.
over time, that's great. So let's talk about the next generation, right? The great thing is
Yeah,
you're in teacher ed, which I think is amazing. But part of the bigger thing about teacher ed is it is sort of a slow pipeline, right? I mean, you have to build teachers, it takes time. And right now, there's some severe challenges, right? I mean,
yeah.
so maybe talk a little bit about your teacher ed program and how you've structured it, and then we could jump into some of the challenges and talk about that.
One of the things that really drew me to the University of North Georgia when I decided to go into higher ed, because I didn't do that immediately after getting my PhD. I actually took 2 years and was a principal. But what drew me to University of North Georgia is this unique model of an elementary and special education program. So every student who goes through our program is dually certified. So they have placements every semester in both an elementary classroom and a special education classroom. And they have that every semester throughout their program. So for 3 semesters in a row, they have all of these experiences 3 days a week in the classroom working with children. And then when they get to their student teaching, they can choose. Do they want to go more of a what we call in Georgia an IRR or an integrated resource route, or do they want to go the route of general education? So they can choose when they get to that point. And then when they go to get a job, how wonderful is it that these students are so well prepared to have any student in their classroom? So when I'm teaching my special education methods course in the fall of their senior year, I really focus in on that with them, on the high leverage practices, on that collaboration piece, so that they learn how to invite every student into their classroom, no matter who they are. And one of the things that can be a challenge sometimes in an elementary and special education program is folks feel that they're predetermined to definitely be in a special education classroom. So they're looked at and they're said, oh, you have elementary and special ed. We're going to put you in the special ed classroom, or we're going to put you in the elementary classroom, and we're going to give all of the kids with disabilities to your classroom because you've had the training. But believe it or not, our students are so well versed. And when they go out into the field, they're not being pigeonholed into special education. They really do have the choice. And it's always amazing to me talking with students who are in their junior year when they first come to us as part of the program, and like the true meat and potatoes of the program. When they come in as juniors and I ask them, what do you want to teach? And they say, oh, I only want to teach kindergarten, or I only want to teach first grade. And there aren't a lot of students who say, I only want to teach special education. But what I find is after they have the course that I teach in the fall, which is this special ed methods class, I have students who come to me and say, you changed my mind. You changed my mindset, and now I want to be a special
So
education
I think the
teacher.
thing that sort of strikes me as sort of unique is this, having them in the classroom so much and so much, is bridging that knowing and doing gap, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's something one of our people in our company always talks about, Amy Dupree. She says, knowing and doing is very different what you learn. So you actually
Yes.
are giving them that real world experience,
Mm-hmm.
which is now but that takes a lot of logistics. Like, how do you arrange for all your students to do that?
It's a lot. So we graduate, University of North Georgia, we graduate almost 200 students a year in the elementary and special education program only. So the logistics that go into it, I am so glad that is not my job. That is someone else's job. So, but the logistics that go into making sure that every student has 3 unique elementary placements, because it's not just going into an elementary school, it's they have a placement in pre-K to first grade, they have or to kindergarten, they have a placement in first through third, and then they have a placement in fourth or fifth. So it's 3 unique placements, and we try and change their school every year. So we try and get them into different areas, working with different populations of students. So that the logistic part of it, I give so much credit to the person who does that job because that's a lot.
But
But
but you had to establish those relationships with those schools ahead
oh
of time, right?
yes,
So obviously you have an outreach
absolutely.
program, you maintain
Mhm.
that, and you built
Yep.
that institutional knowledge that over time
Yes.
yeah, persisting. That's great.
Yeah,
So
and
how
one of
many
one
schools
of the
do
things
you
that's
feed
come
into?
out recently is the
Mhm.
number of school districts we work with. So we went from working with about 7 school districts when I first started at University of North Georgia, but this pivot that we've started to see towards parent to teacher and teacher residence models and all of these different things has actually led us to now we're in 20 school districts.
Wow.
It's
That's
amazing.
crazy.
Yeah, in a very short period of time. And next year we are going to even go further because we're going to be starting a Bachelor of Education in Special Education next year. So we're going to have a dedicated special ed program next
Well,
year
you know what?
because we have the need.
I think one of the things that almost everyone else, I know you're in TEDS also, that group,
Oh, yes.
which is a division of CEC, the teacher ed. But I bet you just even teaching everyone your logistics of how you handle this would be really amazing because, you know, I remember when I started Let's Go Learn 25 years ago, I talked to a principal at Martin Luther King Elementary in Berkeley, and she said, Richard, this is when we first launched our assessment and it worked over a modem. She
Oh,
goes,
wow.
she was like, it's all about logistics. She was warning me,
Oh, yeah.
and it's so true today. So
It is.
hey, kudos to you guys. I'm really impressed. I didn't know this. Your program that's quite large and that's really impressive. So
It really is. We
yeah,
are a teaching university. We're not putting out the doctoral students, things like that, but without the type of university I work at, we don't get to the point where I am now. We don't get doc students if you don't have the first year teachers, and we have so many first year teachers that we're putting out every year.
so how many years have you been in this program or running it?
I'm in my 7th year at the University of North Georgia now.
Okay, great. So
Yeah.
I have a question. Obviously, one of the tough things is that we all know that teacher retention is really hard, is really low, right? The average,
Yes.
I think the statistic is the average teacher stays on 5 years, right?
Mhm.
And I noticed at some schools, it's interesting. They have this huge group of new teachers, and then they have a small group of people over 10 years. So they're
Yes.
missing everyone in the middle. You have those teachers who say, "Look, I'm in it," boom, and then you have all these new teachers who join and they burn out. And so,
Mhm.
what do you do? What do you say to your teachers to sort of combat this? Because I think or what are some of your comments on it too? Because obviously there's this potentially a systemic issue.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. You know, it's it's a challenge sometimes. And I wear a lot of different hats at my university. And one of the hats I wear is I'm one of our master faculty advisors. And what does that mean? Basically, it means that over the summer, I do a lot of freshman orientations. And I'm talking to a lot of brand new students coming into the field, coming into our university. And, we talk about what it's, we all talk about that whole idea, the why. Why are you becoming a teacher? Remembering your why, doing all of that. And sometimes it can sound like just words coming out and going to that, but that's what it is. There's a reason you become a teacher. There's a reason we're in the field. And it's because we're helpers. We want to be the helpers. We want to work with students. And I always tell my students that on the hard days, either one thing is to save those little notes and letters that you get. So those cute little, the little note that the teacher student leaves on your desk of, you're my favorite teacher, or this was my favorite thing, or I loved this today. Those things, I have a box of them. And whenever I'm having a rough time remembering why I do what I do, I go back to that and I say, okay, yep, that's it. Okay, I'm okay now. and I can go back and do it. I can go back another day. And that's what we have to go back to. And I need the tangible. I need the piece of paper. I need to look at it and I need to say, okay, I remember when this student said something to me, and that's going to bring me back. And
Well,
I have stuff all the way back to when I was a first year teacher.
that's
And,
great.
you
Now,
know,
of course, it would be nice if we could have, they didn't always have to have that happening,
oh,
right? But
sure,
I know it's a very difficult situation.
it
And
is.
yeah,
It is. It's hard, but that's what I talk to the students about. And I tell them, I said that you're going to have hard days. I'm not
yeah,
going to sit here and tell you that it's not a hard job. But at the end of the day, you've made a difference.
yeah.
And when that light bulb goes off for that student, and I tell them, I said, those children who are hard in your classroom, they will be in school every day. They will never miss a day of school, ever. But it's when you reach that student, that's the one that's going to make you remember why you're doing what you do. And that's what's going to keep you in the field.
Well, that's
Because it's
great.
not going to be our salaries. We know that. It's not going to be our salaries. It's not going to be the workload. But that's why we stay in the field. And it's the connections we make. And
Yeah.
that's what it is.
I always talk, I know a lot of people outside of education, family members, and I always talk and I realize, people don't realize it's a very difficult job when you're isolated because you're really teaching with
Yeah.
students all day long. There's not a lot of time to collaborate because then you have to do grading, you have to prep. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's a very difficult job. A lot of times you are isolated. I know another person was just talking in a podcast and they were talking about how having their people, right? Saying, hey,
Oh,
make sure
yeah.
you also have your colleagues that you
Oh,
sort of
yes.
you collaborate with and you
Mm-hmm.
commiserate at times and you celebrate
Yep.
at times,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to make time for yourself.
Yes.
You know, we talk about, how are you going to make time for yourself? We work so hard. And I have to make time for myself. And my time for myself, what is it? I do theater outside of my job and I do musical theater. And I make time for that. And I make sure that it's in my schedule and it's dedicated time that I'm going to rehearsal or I'm doing something. And that has made a huge difference in my life of, maintaining that balance.
That's great hearing from yourself. I think, hearing your story and sharing, and hopefully other new teachers will hear this interview. Our goal is to sort of spread awareness. And I always think, in this day and age, it's always so easy for people to hear headline news. And I always say,
Yes.
you know what? Things aren't so black and white. It's nuance. It is nuance, right? And understanding the real difference is really important.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so let me turn to some other stuff. You did something else, technology, right? I'm an
Yes.
optimist by
Oh,
nature,
yeah.
and I think one of the things that we do have at our disposal is there's a lot of new tools, and I think that can really help teachers. So I know you've implemented some technology, and tell us about that.
So I I love technology. I'm the first person to run out and get the new iPhone. I really do. I absolutely love it. And there is so much new technology now that can really help us as teachers make our jobs so much easier. But one of the things I need to do as a faculty member and working with undergraduates is to teach them how to use those tools and the time and the place to use those tools. So whether it's using AI and showing them responsible use of AI, I do not go with the theory of telling my students in my syllabus, you are not allowed to use AI at any time, any place. Honestly, I find that when you put that in your syllabus, they're going to be more likely to use AI in inappropriate ways. It's actually, I found it to be very true in talking to other faculty members. They're like, oh, I don't allow anyone to use it. And then they're the first ones to call me and say, oh, I found these students who are using AI in my class. I'm like, yeah, because you told them they can't use it at all.
Well, and I
Yeah.
tell people too, AI, when something is free, because essentially you can get a free account and
Yes.
use it, you can't
Mhm.
stop it. The cat's
Mhm.
out of the bag, right? So it's different if like it cost,
Sure.
some statistical programs for analysis used to cost $1,000 for a license, right? So,
Yep.
but now,
Yep. Well, and not only that, we're actually giving them tools that are paid tools for free. So they have there are paid tools that my university says, here you go, here are paid tools to use. And then we tell them you can't use them. I do that. So that can be kind of crazy. But really teaching them how to use the tools and the right way to use the tools. So if it's AI, showing them how to use AI, how to prompt, and then taking what you get from it and making sure it actually is true or is actually really a good, if you're creating goals or anything like that, making sure it actually meets all the standards of the goals that you want to achieve with your student. So, and also with AI, they're going to go to teachers pay teachers, and they're going to get stuff off of teachers pay teachers. So I'm going to show them the right way to use it. But that kind of, brought me to you and, got our relationship going because I saw the work that Let's Go Learn was doing. And our students are being asked when they get into the field to use programs like a Let's Go Learn or another type of program that might be out there, but they're being thrown into it and being told, okay, go use this. Yeah. Without practice, without training. So our partnership actually began when I went up to you and said, well, can't we use this in higher ed? And now I'm teaching my students how to use it in a practical sense. They're using Let's Go Learn in the field with a student. We're looking at data together. So they're learning how to look at data and analyze data in real time. And what a great way to really, show them how to do that. And then they can go, whatever their school district is using, now they have an idea about how to do it.
So I have to tell a story. So Let's Go Learn has been around for 25 years. And for 25 years, I've been at trade shows. And every so often, I'll meet professors. And I've always said to them, oh, you can, this is a great tool. You could use it for free. And you have real data. You could look at it and you could share it with your students. Because I remember Dr. McCollum, the co-founder, he really instilled in me the understanding of data, right? And he was like, oh, I love data. I love to share it with my kids. We look at it. We understand why is the student struggling or doing well. And you're the first professor to take us up on it. And now I know why, because of your program, how inherently you have all your student teachers in the classroom working with students.
Exactly.
So that is a part of your guys' DNA, is bridging that knowing and doing gap, giving them real. So now I understand why why you did it. So thank you.
So, and we've been using it. This is our third year using Let's Go Learn. And we've, learned the lessons in the past couple of years. And as Let's Go Learn has grown, we've grown as well. So, and I have my students actually going into the field using Let's Go Learn and doing an intervention project with a student over a period of 4 weeks. And they go in, they assess the students using the data, then we look at the data, they make their plan, they do progress monitoring, and at the, every week doing progress monitoring with the child. And then at the end, they're able to have this product that shows what they've done. And I'm explicitly teaching them how to use it. And we go over, we've spent the past 9 weeks talking about high leverage practices every single week. What high leverage practice are we using this week and how are we embedding it and what are we doing using resources? There's so many free resources out there that, we in higher ed should be using even more of, and, that you are providing to us by using this tool. Using CEDAR, using the CITL Center, using CEC, all of these wonderful organizations that have put this material out there, and then going and showing my students, this is where you can go get it.
Yeah.
This is where you can go get really great materials, getting them the free membership through CEC because they're in their student teaching. So they get their free membership to CEC, and then we're bringing CEC into it and looking at the materials CEC is putting out. They're going to webinars, they're reading the articles, they're doing all of the things. So, and then Let's Go Learn is like these wonderful layers that we're adding in for students so that when they go into the field, they know where to go.
Yeah.
Because
awesome.
you're feeling out there. There's so much out there.
Yeah.
There's so much out there. I can go down a rabbit hole so fast on the internet. I mean, last night I was going down a rabbit hole because I'm prepping a new course, and the rabbit hole I went down last night was insane. But this way we're giving students focused, really great materials that are research, the research we're doing in higher ed, we're giving it to them and saying, here you go. Like, we've looked at this, we figured this out. This is something that can work.
Yeah.
And here's how it can work. And now you're going to go practice it. And then you're going to show, I know how to use those high leverage practices because I'm using it with a student by using all of the great resources.
So what's I know we're gonna have to wrap up pretty quickly. I know we can go on probably forever, but
probably hours, yes, I'm sure.
but what's interesting is yeah, I know my mind is turning. It's funny you say you went down a rabbit hole. Last night I was going down a rabbit hole too. I'm amazed at how fast we're able to develop because even we're using AI. Obviously, we've launched AI in our product, so now it's actually writing first draft PLAF, SMART goals, and then we're trying to create a whole dashboard for the working document where we can bring in context. So anytime you do something like, hey, write a lesson for this student, it knows their accommodations or their disabilities, just automatically brings it in. So we're figuring out we're going to be doing something like that probably in about a month. But what's interesting is I do think things are changing, right? Because in the past, there was more bandwidth for some of this, and now it's gotten so tight, right? A lot of public school districts have less money and a higher percentage of special students with disabilities. I've noticed it used to be like 10%, and I've seen some districts that have 20% student with IEPs, right? And some even more.
Yeah.
So that's a huge amount. So there's no choice of doing more with less, right? And I do think that AI will tip things over, but it is going to take a change in workflows, and which is great, is what sort of what you're teaching. So let me ask you this: and what do you see? How would you could teach your teachers, right? And they're going to embrace it. But I do think some of the resistance is going to be SPED directors, because of course it's hard to implement something. They're not in the classroom anymore. What would you say to SPED directors, given your position of authority, right, in teacher ed and experience, for them to adopt new tools?
So I've actually been a special ed director myself. So I actually did spend some time as a special education director. And I think that to our special ed directors, I would just say to keep an open mind and go and look at it. Look and see what this can do for students, and really, I guess, play with the materials. Like, go out there and try it yourself. Try it with, a child, or your neighbor's kid or your niece or your nephew or whoever. Try it out with them and really look at what the materials are giving you and what the specific tool can offer you, because there's so many things coming at them, right? Like, so all day long they're getting, come and use this, come and use this, come and use this, and we have this, and we have this, and we can do this. But go to the research and look at the research on things, and go to the higher ed faculty that are in your area, because they're working with you. They're talking to you. They're, putting students in your school district, and talk to the new teachers. Really go and talk to, we have our experienced teachers who've been there for a long time and who do amazing work, right? But sometimes those new teachers have ideas that you may not have thought of. And we found this actually a lot during the pandemic, when our students were so well versed in technology, and teachers who've been in the field for a long time didn't have that technology background. And we were finding that our student teachers were the ones who were coming in and saying, why don't we make a Bitmoji classroom? Why don't we do this? And they came in and they were teaching experienced teachers. So go talk to those new teachers and find out what their ideas are, because they've got a lot of knowledge and they want to tell you.
Well, that's great. I think we're out of time now, but that's a great way to end it. That's great advice for those SPED directors. Thank you so much, Dr. Sears. And I look forward to seeing you again, probably at one of the national shows. I'll see you very soon.
I'm sure I will see you soon. Thank you so much for having me today.
You're welcome. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Accelerating Education is sponsored by Let's Go Learn, maker of K-12 precision diagnostic assessment and instruction software. Thanks for listening, and be sure to check out our next episode of Accelerating Education.